Okay. All right, so we are open and people are starting to trickle in.
Great. All right, hi everyone. I hope you can hear us. If you're just coming in, if you want to find your way over to the chat function and say hi and let us know where you're tuning in from, we will get started in just a second. Trying to see if I can see the participant list. We're all figuring out the Zoom stuff at the
You go to the bottom and click, yeah.
Found it. Oh, good. I see lots of familiar names. All right. So I will go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Forsko. I am the preservation specialist at the Conservation Center for Art and Historic Artifacts, obviously working from home like everybody else, I assume. This is meant to be sort of like an open chat where we're going to kind of talk about some stuff going on with your institutions around the country. And I'm joined today, I am the collections person, so I can answer questions about kind of collections care related, preservation related questions. But we figured since there was a lot of that going on out there, that we might introduce some other members of our staff here on the call. So I am joined today by my colleague Liyah, and I'll let Liyah introduce herself.
Hi, I am Liyah. I am the Preservation Services Assistant at the Conservation Center, and I'm also the on-site site manager for the Powell House in Philadelphia. And so I can answer any questions that you guys might have about virtual educational programming, whether that be webinars or social media stuff, Facebook Live, all of those sorts of things that we've been doing.
Yeah, and we have Marissa Halderman is also joining us. She will be silent in the background, but you might see her little box up there, and she's going to be helping us out with sort of tech questions and whatnot. So if you're having any, issues with that, go ahead and write them in the chat, and she can help you out. As I said, this is meant to be sort of a interactive session where we can kind of chat with you about some issues you might be facing in the face of COVID-19. So you can ask us questions kind of directly in that chat box over there where everybody's finding it. If you want to make sure that you're addressing all panelists when you chat, that way everybody gets to see the questions, but we'll try to read them out loud as well. You can go ahead and ask them there, and if you would like to speak on the group, you can also raise your hand, and Marissa will unmute you to be able to speak with everybody as well. So feel free to go ahead and ask your questions, but we had a couple of poll questions we wanted to ask to kick things off. If Marissa or Liyah can pull those over. Liyah is also usually tech support, so she is playing double duty right now. I don't know how any of this works, so.
So I just launched the poll, and it should be popping up on everyone's device screens, whether you're on mobile or on a computer. You should be able to see it either way. So there's 2 questions in the poll, and so if you guys can just go ahead and answer those. Is everyone seeing it?
The first question is not seeing them yet. Okay.
All right, I'm going to try to relaunch it.
Ah, I see it now. So the first question is, we're just trying to kind of get a gauge on the things that are concerning people. So what is your current primary worry? I know we have lots of worries, but wanted to know your primary. And then the second one is we're trying to figure out a little bit more about how your institution is reacting. And you have a list of things. And if you're doing something else that isn't listed there, you can go ahead and tell us about what you're doing in the chat box. Or if you have another concern that isn't listed there, feel free to write those in the chat box as well. And once those come in, we'll show you the percentages. I think we can do that once they roll in.
So it looks like we have almost half in so far.
good question for what are people doing for remote monitoring of buildings, environments, and most of us can't access campus. That actually relates to a question we got ahead of time that I wanted to address, which has to do with pest monitoring. And so we had somebody email a question ahead of time about how people are pest monitoring, which is kind of similar to environmental monitoring there. The environmental monitoring, in some ways, it's a little bit easier because a lot of the data loggers out there I know have kind of Wi-Fi capabilities and you can still access it, which from anywhere you are, which I know if you don't have those, then it's still sort of a bit of a problem. Is anybody from your site, Brian, who asked the question, able to come back onto the campus? Is something I know a lot of sites have been working on is doing like a weekly walkthrough, and it might not be the collection staff who's doing that. It might be the security person or facilities or whoever is kind of out there doing the walkarounds anyway. So you can maybe talk to them about what they should be looking at in regards to environment, if they should be checking those pest traps while they're out there and letting you know if they should be checking the environmental monitoring and seeing what they should be doing. All of your PM2s are out for recalibration. Great timing, right? Yeah, always, right? It always comes when it's the worst possible time. Well, I might, if you're not having someone out there regularly, I might see if that might be something you can do. Seeing if you can get someone out to do a walkthrough. I believe that falls under the like essential personnel things. We want buildings to still be functional, so you can probably get one person to do that. Liyah, do we have the results of the poll just to pull that over?
Yeah, we have, 53 votes, it says, came in. So for the first question.
My cat is losing her mind, hold on.
So for the first question, which was, what is your current primary worry? The majority of you said all of the above. And just to go over those options again, it's health and self-care, the economy at large, survival/economic health of cultural institutions at large, and the survival economic health of your specific cultural institution, and then also the political implications. So aside from all of the above, the second biggest concern was just health and self-care, which I think should probably be all of our primary concern right now. So I'm happy to see that. And for how is your institution reacting? Again, the majority is all of the above, but the second majority is creating enhanced opportunities for digital communication and engagement with the public, which the virtual reality tours and developing live stream educational activities both kind of fall into that. So it's good to know that you guys are trying to connect with your audiences from afar.
Great. I'm seeing lots of, there is the results. Hopefully you guys can see those too. I think that's interesting just to kind of get seeing what other people are doing out there as well. But I'm seeing lots of great comments in the chat box about how people are addressing those walkthrough issues. I like the idea of having the cameras and asking for snapshots every day. If you already have security cameras, maybe you can do that, or maybe this might be the time to install something. You can get some relatively cheap like home ones. It doesn't have to be super techy. Jessica is talking about how they created a checklist for the facilities in Google Drive so that they can kind of be live chatting with them, which is another great idea. And I see also having done a quick kind of PowerPoint tutorial with some of the facilities people, which, I know there's a lot of bad stuff going on right now, but if we can look at any sort of silver linings, this might be a really good time to, offer some more training on those collections care issues with your facilities and security staff who might not have been engaged in that way before. And this might be a good opportunity to kind of get them all going along. Liyah, I'm curious, since you're the site manager at the historic site that you live at. Are you doing walkthroughs or anything like that for the site?
Yes, it's a little different because I do live on site, so it's not very difficult for me to walk out of my living room door and into the museum. So I do daily checkups. It's been pretty easy to maintain the same routine as in terms of collections care since I'm on site every day. But I do recommend for people who are not on site every day to try to figure out a way to condense your collections care routines. I know for us, we don't do the same thing every day. We do like X on Monday, Y on Tuesday. And so just try to come up with a way to sort of consolidate that so that the people, whether it be security or higher management or whatever, who's going in to check up on the building so they don't feel overwhelmed with having to do something every single time they're going in. That would be my biggest recommendation for checking up on everything.
Are you having to report back to other staff members, or are you the only staff member there?
I'm pretty much, other than our executive director, I'm the only staff member that would need to be reported to. So I keep an Excel sheet, so I technically am reporting it back to myself.
Yes. And I'm sure everybody saw the cat come in. She creates a ruckus if I don't let her come in. I've found it's just easier to let her in and she'll sit on my lap throughout. Yeah, so, and I know, Liyah, you guys have also been doing some kind of interesting programming since the site is down and you haven't been able to welcome visitors. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what you guys have been doing? What was the name of the site again, just so everybody can Google you if they want?
Powell, Powell House. Samuel Powell was the mayor of Philadelphia before and after the American Revolution. So that's like a really quick background on why the house is important. Also, his wife was amazing and really good friends with George Washington. So there's the very, very quick rundown of the house. So we have mostly been doing stuff on Instagram, primarily because up until the beginning of March, we didn't have an Instagram account. So it's a baby account. And then now we're really trying to, one, fill it with information to begin with, but also this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So we've been trying to do a whole bunch of different things along with our regular posting. We've been doing like room tours, but not necessarily a tour of the room itself. It's more of just a story about the room. We don't want to do just a straight up tour of the house because then why would people come visit us after all of this is over if they've already seen everything that the house has to offer? So we've been trying to narrow in on really specific object highlights or room stories that both inform and educate people and get them interested enough in the house that they would want to come visit once we're reopened to the public. We've also been doing Q&As every Saturday. So Instagram has this feature where it's this little box that comes up and you can ask a question. And so we post it in the beginning of the day, and then throughout the day, we're just sort of answering everyone's random questions. And this past Saturday, the questions have ranged all over the place. Some of them are about collections items. Some of them are about stories of the house itself. Some of them are asking if the house is haunted and random things like that. So it's been a really good way to engage with our audiences in a way that it answers what they want. And it's also been helping us figure out what sort of programming we want because we can see what people are most interested in.
Yeah, it's a kind of a good opportunity to take that time to connect with visitors on a different level than you normally have. Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. Sorry, the cat is just gonna be here. That's great. I see a question about any suggestions for general housekeeping when we're not on site, or just wait until return for cleaning. I'm glad everybody else's cats do this also. Yeah, so housekeeping, I mean, so on the one hand, there's, not gonna be as much kind of regular housekeeping needs because there's not going to be as much traffic. So you can definitely sort of slow down on a lot of that, which is kind of nice. There are definitely, you should still be doing your like HVAC system maintenance though, as you would have regularly. If you have the proper filters going on in that will help to reduce dust and things like that from getting out there. So you should definitely still be kind of keeping up with those things with routine maintenance. And as I said before, a lot of that does fall into that essential business, because nobody wants all of the buildings in this country to fall into disrepair because we've been closed. So that will be allowed in your area. But I think you probably will find that things are not as dirty as they normally are, so you wouldn't need to do as much housekeeping. But when you come back, it'd probably be a good idea to do a once over, and maybe do a little bit more in depth in some of the areas that you haven't been able to get to. I see a little bit of conversation. Brian is talking about entering mold season, which we are about to do that. And we're getting into the rainy, spring showers, right? And we're going to be lots of rain. I know institutions I've worked at in the past have leak issues when that happens too. Marina has some advice about with dehumidifiers and emptying them, being in touch with your engineers. However, if they cannot come in every day, you would end up with fluctuations between when the dehumidifiers are full and when they're working. So that is a really good point about dehumidifiers in general. If they're not getting emptied, then you're still fluctuating. The whole point of the dehumidifiers is to stable things out. So if you're not able to fill them, then it might be better off to reduce the fluctuations and just keep them off. And I know that that's bad and scary, but we're dealing with a lot of that kind of stuff right now, and health and safety have to come first. So if we're not able to go in every day and empty dehumidifiers, then that's going to be a sacrifice we'll have to make. You should definitely do an in-depth mold search when you return, so that you can get things addressed if they have started to mold.
Definitely just do an in-depth sweep of everything when you get back. Even we are going to, before we reopen, even though we've been able to check in every day, we're still going to do a really in-depth cleaning with our company to come through and just double check that everything is perfectly ready to go before we allow visitors to come back in.
Yeah, and I think I did not tune into this, but maybe someone else out there did, but the NCPTT, it's the National Center for Preservation, Training, and Technology, I believe. They, I think, just did like a Facebook Live or another sort of streaming thing about re-entering the building. And like I said, I have not checked that out yet. So you might want to check that out to see what they recommend about some re-entry things, because I think a lot of people are starting to kind of think about re-entering. Yes, we'll get a hyperlink. Marissa will look into it. If not, I will in a second. But I just saw it posted on Facebook or something. But yeah, and I think that'll be, I know a lot of people have been sort of already thinking ahead, because we're all good planners in the museum world, right? And what's going to happen when we get back into the institution. And I think that is definitely where we can start planning. And I know a lot of us are anxious and want to do some planning, so it might be a good thing to do to keep us busy. Anyway, so you might kind of take something like a housekeeping plan that you already have drafted and kind of flesh that out a little bit more. If you already have sort of a more in-depth housekeeping plan, that would also be good. I know that the Minnesota Historical Society has a really great housekeeping plan, lots of good resources on putting together a housekeeping plan, and they have sample plans and all of that. And I know that they came out with a sort of enhanced housekeeping plan as well. So that might be another good thing to take a look at. I think it's kind of specifically geared to cleaning things that are possibly infected with the virus, but it might have some other sort of in how you can go about doing a more in-depth cleaning as well. It does look like somebody else has checked out that thing I was talking about to the NCPTT and said it was worth watching. So it's on my list to watch when I have a minute. somehow I feel like even more busy than normal with trying to keep up on everything out there and staying abreast of what's going on. Have you been finding that? Leo, you were nodding, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I'm so used to having like a very strict schedule of when I do each thing that I need to do around the house. And then now that I've like, my schedule's just completely gone, completely away. And so it's been really difficult to manage that along with all of the new things that we've been doing in terms of our marketing and social media and all that stuff. And so it's just this influx of new things that I'm not used to doing, also combined with all of the stuff that I'm supposed to be doing that I don't know when to do it anymore.
Yeah, and, you know, we've been talking about sort of the tech stuff taking on these new things like Instagram, and it might be that that wasn't really your job before, and now you all of a sudden are in charge of doing Q&As on Saturdays. Or I'm sure lots of you guys saw the Oklahoma, the museum, the Cowboy Museum in Oklahoma City. Their security guard is doing all the run-throughs, but he's also in charge of social media now, and it's been great. So that's been something you guys might find yourself in the same position, taking on some extra roles. Chloe had a question about sanitizing collections, and I know this has been sort of a hot topic on the CCAHA website. We did post a bunch of resources recently, and hopefully Marissa can link to that as well with some other materials on sanitizing collections. But I am also of the popular opinion that time is the best option with this. This is, you know, anything that is going to be kind of strong enough to kill the virus is also going to be pretty damaging for your collection. So since we're all sort of quarantined at home anyway, this is a good time for the collections to be quarantined as well. There is a bit of research still going on about how long the virus lives on surfaces. It seems like the answer is anywhere from a day to 2 weeks. So we're all out of our buildings for more than 2 weeks at this point. So we might as well take that as an opportunity to have them be quarantined as well. So that's definitely going to be the safest thing for your collection. There is a little bit, if you check out that COVID-19 Basics Disinfecting Cultural Resources that Marissa has posted in the comments, there is a little bit more research about how long things do live on surfaces and what you can do if you absolutely have to. So that is a good resource to check out for more information on that. I know there's been a ton of you know, collections care during COVID-19 stuff going on. So that's great. And there, Marissa just linked to our resource page there on the CCAHA website. We've been compiling all of this stuff.
And it looks like we have a couple of questions about how the Zoom webinars function. So the Conservation Center has a paid Zoom account, and so that's how we're able to do the webinar format along with the meeting format. However, it is totally doable to have public events through the meeting format on Zoom. It's a little bit more tricky. You have to just really hope that your audience won't unmute themselves and just start talking over you, but it's very, very doable. A Zoom account is the free one. It comes with either one-on-one meetings, which have an unlimited time period, or I think it's 24 hours, but I doubt anyone's meetings one-on-one are going to be over 24 hours. And then also for the group sessions, it's a 40-minute limit. So if you have some sort of program that you want to do with the public and you think you can condense it down to 40 minutes, or maybe make it like a two-parter where on Tuesday you do part 1, Thursday you do part 2 or something like that, then you can hypothetically do it with the free account. However, if your institution does have the funds to get a paid Zoom account, personally, I think it has saved a lot of trouble by being able to just do it through the webinar format. That is an add-on, and so I think you have to get the like pro Zoom account, which is $14.99, $15, somewhere in that range, and then the add-on is I think an additional $30. And you could do it on a month-by-month basis. And so if you want to just get that pro Zoom account for the month that we're all self-isolating and then cancel it once you guys go back in and you don't need to use as many online resources, that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on more Zoom presentations in the last month than I can even think about. I see a question from Jacinta. Hi, Jacinta, about good examples of updated emergency plans. I haven't seen any surface just yet, but I definitely have my eyes peeled for them. Something that I think has become just painfully aware to all of us while we're going through this is the need for the continuity of operations plan, and specifically that sort of financial bit of it. And I will tell you right now, that is not my area of expertise, the financial planning bit. I will say next week, we are going to be having CCAHA's deputy director, and hopefully, we're still working on some tech stuff, our director of development come in to talk a little bit more about that financial planning. I think that that's been sort of our big takeaway in all of this is we haven't done any of that in the kind of museum, cultural heritage institution world. I did also attend a webinar last week through AASLH, which they're doing a lot of really great webinars as well. So if you looking for stuff to do, highly recommend checking that out. But they did one specifically on financial planning, and I will tell you it was a little over my head in some places. I have a basic accounting. I did take a basic accounting class in grad school, but that is about it for me. But she did talk a lot about cash flow and liquidity and cash reserves and things to consider with lines of credits, when to touch an endowment and when not to, ways to mitigate expenses as opposed to kind of, you know, what that means. So it is recorded. So if that is something that you are interested in, you should definitely go check that out, and be sure to tune in next week also with their the webinar next week, or the chat next week that will be a little bit more financially geared. I think that's been really our big takeaway from this is the collections are not necessarily in imminent danger, and all of us are used to planning for hurricanes and floods where the collections are in imminent danger. And it's a very different response to those things. So we all live and learn, I think is that, and it's, you know, not a good disaster if you don't get to take the time to reflect back on that. So yeah, definitely is illuminating to me that I probably need to do some more of those accounting classes out there to learn more about it.
Yeah, this definitely has taught me that even though I thought I already wore a lot of hats in my institution, I should probably learn a couple more just in case.
Yeah, and a good point from Brian too with the continuity of planning. You know, we might have an opportunity to test this all out again in the fall. I know there's been a lot of talk about the virus resurfacing when, you know, it'll probably die down once the weather gets warm. But you know, it might be something that is more, we might be better prepared, hopefully. But if this happens again in the future, at least will have figured out our meditation routines or yoga routines that we need to do to keep sane.
And so we have a comment from Ellen Orr, who's with Conserve. Ellen, you can absolutely comment in the chat. She wanted to know if she could talk a little bit about her company and how they make remote environmental monitoring tools specifically for collections. So Ellen, if you want to either chat or if you'd like to raise your hand to talk a little bit about that, feel free.
Yeah, I think you guys are Conserve, that the company is doing. Hopefully Ellen will come on and explain, but I think that you might even have some product testing out there that I've heard through the grapevine is going on. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. But yeah, I know with a lot of questions about that environmental monitoring, and hopefully Ellen can answer this about their models, but I know you can set up alerts about various, if things are out of range, and if you can't really go back to site, or you don't have someone who's regularly coming in, at least you can have alerts going on so you know that maybe you do need to go back to the site. Something else, water alarms. If you have a leak area that is an area, first you should probably be sheltering your collections before you leave. So the National Heritage Responders have just a really quick one sheet on sheltering collections, which is essentially just moving them to the safest place. So if you have a room that leaks versus a room that doesn't leak, and you can move things into there, do that. If not, you can drape things in plastic. Remember, don't seal things off all the way, because that will create a microclimate. So we don't want to seal it all the way off, but you can definitely drape make sure there's airflow still underneath, but you can drape some plastic over the top. And then something else to keep in mind is any sort of, server or computer components that might, if they're involved in a flood or some other sort of event, are you going to lose access to your database and all of your collections information? So thinking about how you're going to protect all of that. So it's kind of just something to consider also while you're leaving is how you're preparing your collections so that they will be safe. I know we had an earthquake happen in Utah during this. I think I was on some other chat or webinar or something, and someone was talking about a pipe leak or a big rainstorm that had happened, of course, during the worst time. So you kind of want to be prepared for all of that. But what I was starting with that is water alarms. You can also, similar to like the alarms that you can set on the environmental monitors, you can get something that will go off if there's any water. We used to have one at an institution that I worked at. It was very sensitive. You could just like lick a finger and touch it and it would set the alarm off. So they're pretty good. Ellen, could you maybe tell us a little bit about your about the remote environmental monitoring? You can feel free to just write it out in the chat if you can't do the audio. That works too. And looks like you guys can feel free to ask Ellen any questions about their specific products. I know that there's a couple of groups that do that.
Okay, so it looks like we have another question too from Jason, which was the institution that now regularly posts answers from the public daily as a new way to engage their audience. So I work for the Powell House, which is one of the houses within a large umbrella organization called Phila Landmarks. So we do our questions through Instagram currently, but we are looking to possibly expand that so that we can do Q&As through Facebook and Twitter. We're relatively new to the social media sphere in our house, so we haven't really done this before the pandemic, so this is all new. I know that a lot of the institutions who have already had the funding and regular programming on their social media and their websites and stuff, they sort of have a little bit more resources from that. A lot of the larger institutions in the Philadelphia area, at least, that I've been following, have already had virtual tours and everything made for the museums before this happened. So if your institutions have that, definitely start broadcasting that to the public. But if your institution is small and has a small budget like mine, and you don't already have virtual walking tours and stuff, just try to use what you have. The Q&As have been really great because we don't need to be on site to do them. You can answer the questions about your collections from wherever you are, as long as you know the answers. So it's been really, really, really helpful for us to engage.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, I follow a lot of cultural institutions on Instagram, no surprise, but I've been seeing a lot of really creative ways that people are getting the public to engage. And I'm not sure if you got the Getty has been doing this really awesome. It's not just Getty focused, it's any artwork where they're having people recreate famous artworks at home and then posting them, and they're reposting all of them. And man, people are so creative out there. Boredom does a lot for creativity, it looks like. So that's been totally blowing up, and I really look forward to seeing what people have done. That's not necessarily specific to the institution, but you know, it's a way to engage and kind of have that conversation going on still. I know the Art Institute of Chicago also is doing a challenge of make your own art of your living space. So, and they're reposting everybody's drawings of their cats and drawings of their, you know, food that they're eating and whatnot, which has been really interesting. Another institution that I used to work for, LACMA, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, they've been doing a really interesting Q&A kind of, which is really highlighting their collections, where they have you, basically they just crowdsource, what do you want to see today? And people will write dogs or whatever, and then they'll find a bunch of things in their collection that have dogs in them and then just post them, or, you know, sunsets, you know, and then they show a bunch of sunsets. So it's, I think there's a lot of really good creative ways, and looks like Ingrid is saying to check out the RISD Museum for the staff imitating art collections. Yeah, so if you guys have any other ideas too of what are some creative ways to engage people, you know, let us know. And I think there's a lot of good ways that we can sort of think outside the box with this. I love the virtual tours that Liyah is talking about also. I think those are a great idea. So we'd love to hear more of those ideas. Like I said, another silver lining is the creativity that is coming out from all of this, I think.
And another really great resource that everyone has is just asking our audiences. Just go on your Facebook or your Instagram or your Twitter and ask your followers, what do you want to see from us? And that honestly can come up, like, give you a bunch of ideas. We've had a lot of DMs in our Instagram of people saying, oh, we want to learn more about these aspects of the house. And so we don't even have to do all that much work in terms of coming up with the creative planning. We just let our audience members do it for us, which has been really helpful.
Yeah, and I know the CCAHA Instagram, and there's Marissa actually works for a side project called the Documentary Heritage and Preservation Services for New York. And I know they do really interesting things highlighting different collections around the state of New York. And so that might be something else to consider as well. Wrote a top 10 historic artifacts in the collection, Jason did. And there's Marissa's, the Dipsney handle. Those are all great things. So if you're looking for inspiration on how to engage more, maybe get an Instagram and check out what people are doing there, or Twitter. We got nothing but time on our hands, right?
And it looks like Austin, who I'm assuming works for the same company that Ellen does, he said that Ellen's video is out, but he can say a few words. So I'm gonna allow him to talk really quickly. So if you guys have any questions for them, go ahead and ask them now.
This.
Oh, there's a baby.
Hey guys, this is Fern.
Hi, Fern.
Very different experience for people that have kids. Although cats and dogs, you know, very similar. My name's Austin. I run a company called Conserve, and we build remote monitoring for collections. So CCAHA group, like, thank you for putting this on. You guys are a great resource. And we have a bunch of sensors sitting around right now that really need to be out in people's collections as people are working from home. And so we just want to make it easy and let people know that we're available. It's stuff we can send directly to your facilities folks. It's kind of a plug and play thing they can set up, and it just works. So I know people are, are sort of in chaos right now. We just want to make that less of a hassle for folks. So.
There's a question, does the software interact with eClimate's notebook or anything like that?
Yeah, so, hi Fern, thank you. Yeah, hi. Sort of like a cat at this age. So if you are getting data out of your PIM2s or Hobo devices or whatever data loggers you have, that's the kind of thing you can put on the platform if you want to see it all together. Some people are happy to sort of use HoboWare, eClimate Notebook, or whatever you also have. That's fine too. We tried to make it a place where you can bring any data you have and sort of see it all in one place. So what do you think, Fern? Yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll let you all get back to the, the other conversation, but again, just the offer is, no questions asked. We'll send this stuff to you and we'll worry about money later because, it's really not time for that right now. So anyway, thanks for letting me share a few words.
Sure. Austin, if you want to, or Ellen, if you want to plop your email in the chat just so people have it, that would be great. And we will, hopefully everyone will see it. The company is called Conserve without an E at the end. Brian.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Great. If anyone else wants to join with if anyone else has a special guest there who's watching the video with us. Yeah, so that might be, if you're really struggling, definitely consider something like that. Yeah, I think remote monitoring is definitely something that has also been really illuminated as a need in all of this. We actually have on our website as well, under the resources page, we have a list of kind of lower cost models of data loggers that show, all of the different features. Some of them can do remote monitoring, some of them can't. So that might be something else to take a look at if you are trying to figure out how to address this problem right now. So I'm also wondering if anybody else has any suggestions about how they are addressing some of the at-home stuff. I love that you guys are putting in your the stuff that the institution that is doing sort of public facing, but I'm wondering how you guys are managing to still work as a team. Are you guys doing Zoom meetings? Are you doing conference call meetings? What are you guys doing sort of internally to stay connected? Are you just communicating via email? I'll let you know at CCAHA, the preservation services team, we always are kind of on the road. So this was sort of easy for us because we've already been remote for a while, but we've started doing a little bit more formally. We do a conference Zoom meeting every Friday, and we get to see each other and talk. And then sort of staff-wide, we have, and Liyah, I believe you're on the Sunshine Committee, correct?
I am, yes. At the Conservation Center, we have what is called the Sunshine Committee. Very, very, very important and official committee. We organize a lot of sort of group outings, but since they're virtual, we've been doing virtual happy hours. Coming up this Friday, we're going to try to do a staff-wide movie viewing. We're going to watch Night at the Museum because that's very appropriate. And don't know exactly how that's going to work quite just yet, but we are going to try it. And also we've been trying to open up, we use Teams to connect the entire staff in terms of chatting with each other. And so we try to make some channels within Teams that are more professional based, but then also some channels that are just for chatting. We have a couple of different ones. One is for recipes, one is for like posting pictures of your pets and your kids, and just trying to come up with different ways for all of us to engage in a way that we would when we're all in the office together. Is when you're all in the break room, you're not just talking about work the entire time, you're also chatting about your lives and things that are happening. So just making sure that you have those conversations online as well to sort of keep up that sort of family feel with your staff is really really beneficial.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of you guys are using Teams and Zoom also, which is great. And happy hours every week. I love that. Yeah, somebody should have invested in Zoom a few months ago, I believe. Blue Jeans, Allison saying, I've not heard of that one, but Slack and Microsoft Teams for more informal chatting. Yeah. Really kind of getting used to doing some of this working remote. Do you guys think that some of this will stay when you go back? This is more just me being curious. Since we've all started, I know there's the joke out there that this meeting could have been an email, and now we are really putting that to a test. Could this meeting really have been an email? So I'm just wondering if you guys have any plans to move more remotely even after this. I know, as I said, at CCAHA, we've already been pretty, especially with the preservation services team, we've already been essentially remote, because the preservation services team is the group that's kind of going all over the country and doing site assessments and all of that. So, you know, I'm all about looking at silver linings. So what can we take and learn? Dee is talking about how she's also been doing this for a while, living in a professionally remote area. Yeah, so hopefully we'll move more on to there being more stuff online. Good point from Maria. Oh no, I was just the good point from Maria saying, you know, even those of us who work with collections physically every day, we still need some time to do planning and collaboration and all of that. And you know, silver lining again, now that we are forced to do this, how can we really use that time for it and learn? Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Liyah.
Oh, no, sorry. One important thing to note about Teams is anybody that has an Office 365 subscription, for the most part, depending on what level your subscription is Teams is usually included in that, along with, you know, Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and all of that. So I know a lot of institutions use Office for their email, and so you might have Teams and not even know it. So that's definitely something to check in on, because it's been a really, really great collaboration tool for us, at least at the center.
Yeah, Allison, congratulations. It said they did not have the capacity to work on their database remotely, and now they do. So that's great. So, you know, we're good things are happening still, even though it's a pandemic. Brian's talking about revising policies, photo image management, learning, reading lit. That's all great stuff to do. What I'm curious, a lot of people have been telling me they've been working on policies while they've been out, which I think this is a great time to do. But which policies have you guys all been working on?
I know us at the Pal House, we have been working on revamping a lot of our collections management policies in terms of our day-to-day housekeeping. And so we've been trying to work on our regularly scheduled housekeeping plan, and then also add in a little bit more of a contingency for that. Right now, pretty much all of our income besides our grants and donors is gone. Most of our income is from our rentals program, actually. And so since nobody is having their weddings right now, we've really seen a big cut in terms of that. And so trying to come up with collections plans for when we don't have as much income as we're foreseeing is something that we've been focusing on.
Looks like Amanda's also working on her housekeeping policy, which is great. And just to make another plug, later this week on Thursday, actually with Amanda's coworker, Sarah Bueller at the Brandywine River Museum of Art, and I are going to be presenting on how to make a preservation plan. So now might be a good time if you're looking for something to do that is not pandemic related, but will still be incredibly helpful for your site. Might want to tune in. That is on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So check out our website for that. Oh, and Sarah's on here too. She said, I already knew this part, but they've been working on their collections development policy, and getting the directors and curators to focus on that right now. That's great. I saw a question. Hold on, you guys are very chatty, so I have to go up a little. Has anyone featured educational programming or featuring artifacts from past pandemics, such as the 1918 Spanish flu? It's a good idea. I personally have seen a lot of things out there about the Spanish flu, like pictures and things from people's collections database, but I don't know if anybody is sort of formally doing anything on that. Man, and this is a great list of projects and plans you guys should think about doing.
Yes, definitely. At the Pal House, we are currently in the process of going through making a video about the yellow fever epidemic and how it relates to COVID. So be on the lookout for that. Not quite sure when we're going to get around to posting it because we're still in the process of filming, but yeah, it's been interesting trying to figure out ways to connect the past to the present when the present is so crazy. So I'm sure that there's plenty of you out there that feel the same.
Nora's talking about how she's kind of having a hard time focusing. These are all great ideas, but she doesn't have the attention span. Yes, I totally feel that. And my husband and I joke about how since our office is literally only steps away from us now, when is it work time versus when is it, home time? And I think that contributes a lot to the loss of attention span. I personally am pretty good at focusing. Like I said, I've been working on the road a lot, so that's not a huge issue for me personally. So I don't know if I have too many personal tips. I do try to set, I'm working during these hours and then I'm not, and I don't even go over in that area. The laptop's closed, everything's turned off. Liyah, do you have any tips that you live in your workplace also? So
yeah. Work and home life separation is very different when you live in your work. So it's always been kind of funky. One thing that I have always found very useful is that instead of saying, oh, I have to work 9 to 5, if I want to break that up, I allow myself to do that. So what I've been doing a lot is that I work, say, 8:30 till like 3:30 on the conservation center side of things, and then I let my afternoons be for more of the Pal House stuff. And so just allowing yourself to break your schedule a little bit, but still try to maintain a routine has been really useful for me.
Routine is key. It's tough because your bed's right there too, and you could just take a nap if you don't have kids and things, but yeah, definitely. Suggesting blog posts about what you're doing from work from home with the collection. That's a great idea to talk about it. And a very good fundraising idea, yeah, about why people should continue to support you because we still have to care for these collections. I was joking with someone recently about how all museums have essentially just become storage facilities for things, and how that makes our job even more important than it ever was, our collections folks. So, yeah.
Developing a sort of call to action is very important. What we've been doing for all of our social media posting throughout all of the houses that are in the Phil Landmarks umbrella, we have a sort of call to action that we put underneath of whatever caption or explanation that we have, and that leads to our fundraising link. We have a separate fundraiser now specifically for maintaining operations during COVID, and that's something that I would recommend, is that instead of hoping that people just donate to your general funds, if you want to just create a separate fundraiser specifically for this, it's been really helpful.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they'll talk about this next week, that very same topic. Lee hopefully will be on the call, the director of development. He's great at fundraising things. I'm sure he has lots of ideas, but I did also that was discussed also in that financial planning webinar that I mentioned with ASLH, is talking about that call to action and, still making the ask, even though it's happening now. Mm-hmm. Mark is talking about a Google spreadsheet that AIC has put together with tons of work from home ideas and training opportunities and things like that, which is another good resource. I think it's kind of, you can kind of break your day up with actually doing some work, maybe tuning into a webinar, kind of doing stuff like that throughout the day, and that spreadsheet hopefully could help. Mark, if you have a link to that spreadsheet, you should throw it in the comments. We just have a couple more minutes left here. So if there's any other questions, please get them out to us. Before we go, could you repeat Marissa's last name and the institution for those of us taking notes? Yes, Marissa Halderman, and the organization, she works at CCAHA, but on a side project of ours called, I'll say it slow, it's a long one, Documentary Heritage and Preservation Services for New York. Is there a state in there too? No, I think there's not.
I think so.
It's New York, DIPSNY for short. So that is where she is, and they have a lot of other cool stuff on their Instagram and Facebook and all of that. Thank you for the spreadsheet, Mark. Great point about you're not working from home, you're at home during a crisis trying to work. Yeah, we should all give ourselves a little bit of slack too. I know it's hard especially, I don't know, I feel like collections people are a little bit more like, and conservators too, we're all sort of very type A, and I think it's, tough for us to really back up and give ourselves but if this is not the time to do it, I don't know what the time would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take care of yourselves first, take care of your collection second.
Definitely. That is always, if we're talking about revising emergency plans too, that's always something that I preach every time I talk about an emergency plan is, the collections are not as important as you, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, it looks like we are wrapping up. Well, we have about 3 minutes, so we'll stay on for the last 3 minutes. But it looks like a lot of people are jumping off, so I did want to say our goodbyes and another plug for coming up this week. We have a couple of Facebook Lives going on. We have the webinar on Thursday, and then next week we'll do another one of these chats. So hope to see you all there.
All right. And it looks like there's no other final questions. So thank you all so much for tuning in.
Great. See you later. Thanks.